Gold Star families, ladies and gentlemen, you'd expect me to say it, but it really is an honor to be with you all today. And Secretary Rumsfeld, Red, and Diego, congratulations on the recognition. Red, when you were up here, you reminded me about why Marines love Navy corpsmen and why we never go home without them. Unbelievable, really inspirational. And for Ryan and Tom and the whole foundation, thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. But more importantly, thanks for what you do for our families, for veterans, and for making sure that character does matter in the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of closing the program, and I have the responsibility of closing the program. And I saw Ryan looking at her watch a few minutes ago, and I said, all right, I'll do my part to help her out. If you haven't noticed, Ryan is a bit of a type A personality. She's very organized, she's very driven, and I think we're about 20 minutes late. And so what I'd like to do is just close by maybe making a couple of comments that are related to Ryan's very eloquent speech about legacy. Tonight is about legacy, and of course, earlier tonight, we saw the pictures and heard the names of those that have left a legacy of courage, of commitment, of selfless service. And I would tell you, we're recognizing our commitment to remember that legacy by just the fact we're gathering here tonight. But I told Tom earlier, the men and women that are in uniform, that are proudly following in the footsteps of Travis and Brendan and Robert and Jesse and Matthew and the many others that are represented here tonight, the men and women that have followed in footsteps are equally committed to remember their legacy. Last November, on the 10th of November, the Marine Corps birthday, I found myself in Iraq. And some of the Marines that were there found out I was there, and they invited me to come down and participate in the cake-cutting ceremony that's traditional on the 10th of November. And so I flew down to Al-Assad in the Anbar province, and I got off the helicopter. And the first thing I saw when I got off the helicopter was, "Welcome to Camp Manion." And then throughout the rest of the camp, there were small reminders of Travis and his life. And I spent 10 November with Travis Manion, and I can tell you that for all the Gold Star families here, there are examples of that all across the military now where we made a commitment to never forget, and we won't. But there's another important legacy that actually Ryan reminded me of tonight, and it's the legacy that really now is carried on by those left behind in their sacrifice. Ryan referred to one of Travis's favorite books, The Gates of Fire. In The Gates of Fire, I won't go through the whole story, but The Gates of Fire, of course, talks about the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, and it's the Persians were invading the Greek city-states, and the king at the time of Sparta had to pick 300 warriors to go up to a mountain pass and stop the Persian horde until they could get organized to deal with it. And in that book, actually, it's interesting that it was one of Travis's favorite books, and to see Ryan up here tonight. In that book is probably one of the best descriptions of the importance of families and those left behind that I have ever heard. And although through most of the book it doesn't say much about the Spartan families, and it certainly doesn't say much about the reason why those 300 were selected for that particular mission, which they expected when they assigned those individuals to that mission that they would probably not come back. You don't find out till the end of the book on how those 300 were selected. And you find out in a conversation that takes place between a widow who approaches the king. And she lost both her husband and her son. They were both in that group of 300. And she accosts the king, and she's full of emotion, and she's full of grief, and she says, "I don't understand. Why did I give all and some weren't called to give anything?" And the king paused and he said, well, this is going to be a long war, and this is going to require a great sacrifice of our nation. And I actually picked those 300, not based on their own individual strength, because I had thousands of warriors to pick from, all of whom could have done the job. I picked those 300 based on the strength of their families. And I knew that their sacrifice, their willingness to endure, would make sure that the nation would be able to endure in the difficult days ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess I would just close here tonight by saying that in addition to the legacy that we honor tonight of Travis and Brendan and Robert and Jesse, we also recognize the legacy of Janet and Ryan and Tom and the many others that are here this evening that represent the families left behind. And I'll tell you what I feel after sitting here for the last couple hours and listening to the testimonies and realizing the impact that the Travis Manion Foundation is having on the next generation of Americans, realizing that the message that we say that we're committed and will never forget is carried on by the Travis Manion Foundation. The thing that I kind of walk away with tonight is I feel pretty good, as Diego does, about being an American. And despite all the noise that people have referred to here tonight, when I walk away here tonight and I look out at this audience, I listen to the testimonials, and I realize what this organization is about, and particularly the part about character for the next generation, I feel really good. And that's because of the legacy of those left behind, inspired by the legacy of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. So for me, I guess I'd just simply close by saying thanks to all of you here. Thanks in particular to Ryan and Tom for what they have done. And a couple of people have said it, and I couldn't help but think it when Ryan was speaking. She has so much of her mother in her. And Janet would be so proud to see how the organization has blossomed and grown and the impact that it's having from Houston to San Diego to Coronado to Washington, D.C. and Chicago and all points in between. So God bless you all, Semper Fidelis, and again, thanks.